transition from hospital to community and really being challenged to find the right levels of care and the right services and supports in their local communities. We're also seeing, again, as many of us are really aware of, really high acuity of substance use issues. So all of this need that we see really points to also the need that we have for safe, accessible, and welcoming places for people to go to really access that treatment and recovery, and that support, long-term support that we know is really critical to people living their best lives in the community and really supporting that recovery that we know is possible for many, many people with mental health issues. Next slide. So just one of the things I wanted to note about sort of how we look at the needs that we're seeing early in the pandemic, we really recognized that the pandemic was having significant impact on community mental health, and in Dakota County, we created sort of a dashboard so that I think, some people like to kind of look at the data that's supporting what we're seeing. And so we've been tracking things like calls to our agency for service, 911 calls that are related to mental health or welfare checks, civil commitment requests, EMS calls. And so all of those numbers, unfortunately, are really going up. And so we're able to look at the data that supports that. We do see some bright spots, and I think that, we'll see if these trends hold, but I think we see it as an indication that more people are reaching out for support. So we have seen some reduction in deaths by suicide. And again, we want to really promote those places that people can go for that support that prevent those really tragic outcomes that we know have many, many ripple effects in our communities. As I mentioned, we're also seeing just a lot of substance use and very high acuity and overdose deaths, which is again concerning and speaks to the need to have services that can really support recovery in the community. So just to go through this, but this is just an example of some of the data that's available on our website where we're tracking some of these things over time, and you can kind of see what's happened since we started tracking these numbers in 2019. So, as we recognize the need, Dakota County, and thanks to the leadership of our board and the support of our leadership within our county, we have really worked over the last number of years to really think about how do we create an effective continuum of care. So all of those community-based services, and Julie will talk a little bit more about sort of that whole continuum of care, and Guild is a wonderful partner in Dakota County in making services available. And then specifically to how do we really meet people in crisis who are having these kind of acute crisis events and symptoms, and really how do we effectively work with people to coordinate and care and really connect people with the services that will be important to their recovery. So we have looked to national best practices about how we do this. And so we've really worked in the last number of years to create a really effective crisis continuum in Dakota County. So we talk about that in terms of somebody to talk to. There's movements on the national level through 988, through our local crisis response unit to really make sure that we are available and accessible for people via phone to talk to, kind of that outreach for help. And then pairing that with mobile and emergency response, which is an area that our county has really invested in to, if people need that in-person response, having a team of people that can go out and respond to that with sort of the right service at the right time. And also when needed, teaming with law enforcement, but also really being able to respond with only a mental health response if that is what's needed. And also just in that kind of someone to call, really doing a lot of handoffs of 911 calls that could be better responded to with that mobile or emergency response. The somewhere to go area is the piece that we're going to really talk about today, which we understand is a very important part of this crisis continuum, but also where we hear a lot that we need more support when people need that support, a somewhere to go as an alternative to a hospital, or as if people end up in more restrictive settings like jail or other places that are not appropriate to their care needs. We need to really be able to offer that as part of an effective system of care. And then again, we're doing a lot of work in coordination with public safety and law enforcement to have follow-up services also available in the community through embedded social work relationships with our police departments in Dakota County. So we're focusing tonight on the somewhere to go part of the continuum, but we think it's really important just to lay out sort of everything that we're doing, because this is all happening from a system of care approach. And we know for any of this to be successful, it's really got to be kind of along this whole continuum. So we're really excited tonight to be able to talk about somewhere to go and being able to bring a new community asset to our mental health services continuum. So with that, I'll turn it over to Julie from Guild. And again, we're really excited to have a long-standing partnership with Guild, providing a lot of these services along the continuum for many years. And we're excited to be able to think about how we continue to modernize and make services available locally for our community.
Thank you. So yes, Guild has been a long time Dakota County partner. We've been around in the community serving mostly the east side of the metro area with a continuum of services for people with serious mental illness and community-based services. So the array of services that you see here on the slide range, what they have in common is that they all take place in the community in which people live. And so any of these services are provided where our clients are. The crisis residential intensive treatment services that we're talking about today are on the most high acute level of treatment services that we provide at Guild. The rest are more wraparound services that help people meet their needs, including housing, employment, and mental health and medical care to really wrap our services around people so that they can stay in the community and be healthy in the community of their choice. Really critical part with the crisis residential and intensive treatment services that I'll be detailing in just a minute is that we know that it's really important for people to receive these services close to where they live. There is a lack of crisis residential and intensive treatment services in our state, and that has resulted in people being turned away, having nowhere else to go, or being shipped, as I keep hearing, shipped across the state, often up north, many hours away from their family and their support network. Really key piece of these services is that integration back into the community. So whereas hospitalization, someone is mainly in the hospital and they're discharged and there's really nothing else for them, these services help people along that continuum of needing to be somewhere with some restriction and then moving more freely out and really leaning on their support network more and more gradually, so that time they get home, they're ready to be there and we can ensure they have the supports to do so. So the plan is to construct a new facility at Dakota County's Northern Service Center property in West St. Paul. Currently, the beds that we have in West St. Paul or in Dakota County are located in South St. Paul. It's 3 old houses that were never meant to serve this purpose. They're shared bedrooms, shared bathrooms, and have really been an incredible place to have. We've had it since 1982, and it's not accessible to people with mobility challenges. And we learned in the pandemic that it really was a liability to have those such close quarters. They're also not what we call trauma informed, meaning that someone, as more and more of our clients who experience significant trauma, being in tight quarters, not having your own space can all be really contraindicated to treating someone who's experienced trauma and have increasing mental health symptoms. And then Emily will talk a little bit more about this place to go. So in addition to the IRTS and crisis services, the place to go is a 24/7 crisis assessment, connection, and support center for people. That is a brand new idea. It's based off a model that some of our team were fortunate to learn about that's happening in Olmsted County. And it's something that we're trying out. It's really been important for our law enforcement partners that we keep hearing them saying they're going out to calls and there is just a need for someone to get away from their family briefly, to leave their home environment for a brief time, to get some assessment and connect into services. And that's what we envision that area to be. And that will be in the same building. The services we'll be providing in this new building is what we call IRTS, the Intensive Residential Treatment Services, which is a mental health treatment that is up to a 90-day stay. So people will stay overnight, eat all of their meals, live together for up to 90 days, and be getting tools and therapies so that they can go back home and with those other services and supports really thrive in their communities. For someone who is admitted to this kind of service, the symptoms are generally less severe than what's required for hospitalization. Because our system is so stressed at this point in time where we don't have enough hospital beds, people are waiting. We have seen some of that criteria that we're seeing more acutely ill people, but they're still just sub that hospitalization level. We're also see a lot of people being referred to our IRT services as a follow-up to a hospital discharge to stabilize and re-enter into the community. So again, as we have less mental health beds and more demand for those beds, we can use this IRTs treatment to help people move from the hospitalization as soon as they're medically stable and into a friendly trauma-informed center in the community to really help them move into recovery more quickly. Crisis residential services are a little bit different with a similar criteria for entrance. We see people up to 10 days. So generally will come into the crisis services needing to stabilize increasing mental health symptoms, but we see that they're again less than severe level of hospitalization, but also really need a therapeutic environment in order to stabilize and then return back. So people in our crisis residential services will often get a connection right back into their support system fairly quickly, get assessed, provided those services, and then discharged. The number of beds in this facility is 16, and we will be keeping these beds flexible. So those beds can be used for either the intensive residential treatment or the crisis residential, which enables us to be pretty nimble and use those beds as efficiently as possible so that we don't have people waiting, for example, for an IRTs bed because we are saving some beds for crisis and vice versa. So we found that to be a really efficient and good way for us to do that, and want to bring that to this facility as well. And then the welcoming place to go, as I talked about, we're really looking at the Dakota County Crisis Team providing assessment support, connection, and stabilization back into the community.
So we just, a project like this just has many, many steps to it, including securing funding, doing the design, having all the support from all the different stakeholders, community engagement. So we just wanted to share sort of where we're at, what we've done to date, and where we're at tonight's presentation, and sort of what's next for our team. So we have long recognized that, again, Guild services have provided for many, many years just an extremely valuable service in our community. And we've long recognized that the current infrastructure for those services needed to be addressed in order to maintain these services in the community. As Julie mentioned, these services are currently provided in 3 old homes in South St. Paul that are not accessible to people with mobility needs, that require significant investments if they were to be viable for the future. And really sort of the cost benefit on that does not kind of create that trauma-informed space that we know is so important for these services. So we've long recognized this, and then in summer of 2021, the Department of Human Services had a request for proposals for bonding dollars to be able to construct crisis and recovery centers. And we saw this as a great opportunity to partner with Guild to modernize and sustain these services for the future. So we applied with the board's support, applied to that grant opportunity, and were conditionally awarded $3.5 million to go to the cost of this construction, and also commitment from the board for additional American Rescue Plan dollars to fund remaining building costs. With that, we have been working with our county board and have their support. for moving this project forward. And the place that we're right in now is the pre-design schematic design, and I'm working toward submitting a rezoning application to the city of West St. Paul. And also, as tonight is an example, really looking to engage the community during this process, and are really interested in hearing input, ideas, questions that will help us, both with the building project, but also the service design moving forward. And there is a pretty tight timeline on this project. So with the DHS bonding dollars, the building needs to be completed and services need to be provided by the end of 2024. So we are working diligently through a work plan that has many steps to it with that end date in mind. So with that, I'll turn it over to Brian, who's going to talk a little bit more about the site selection of the building.
Thank you, Emily. As Julie mentioned earlier, the site of the new building is right here on the Dakota County Northern Services Center property. The yellow block is our new site. It's currently going through the rezoning process to be zoned to an R4. The red perimeter is the rest of the Dakota County property line. This site was chosen and appeals to many different reasons. And just to ground ourselves, we've got Highway 62 to the south there, southwest corner. Mendota is to the south, and then Robert Street runs north-south to the east. Local amenities, there's retail, Cub Foods is just to the east. There's bus transit directly to the south on Mendota. Its close proximity is adjacent to Northern Services Center for social service, easy accessibility, and also Guild's community support program is just up the road on Livingston, I believe. So if we zoom in closer to the site, I can talk a little bit more specifically about the building. You can see the footprint there in the gray. It's a C-shaped at this point. And we are still in schematic, so there aren't any further building details to show. However, some of the amenities include geothermal, solar. The area to the north is a wooded property, so there's some nice kind of setback, quieter areas for the stay. The green areas, we have some buffer, some screening between Northern Services Center and this building, and we're going to provide a new sidewalk connection to the south for transit and crosswalk to the eastern retail area. And just some data, about a 16,000 square foot facility. We talked about the 16 clients, residents. Home-like and residential is one of our strong guiding principles. It stays up to 90 days. It being a transitional building, it's really important to have that really home-like quality and not something too trendy or urban or harsh for that stay. Green space is a priority. And then, as Julie mentioned, the trauma-informed and evidence-based design principles are being applied to the new building. And then sustainability, that's another large focus. Like I mentioned, there'll be solar panels, underground geothermal well. The mechanical units will have energy recovery capabilities, occupancy sensors, low flush fixtures for some of the details. And then our energy target is pretty aggressive, following the state standards. This building will be, for context, 80% more efficient than the same type of a building designed in 2003, the same use and scale, just to give an easy idea of the energy target that we're going for with this one. And so here's just a quick schedule of some of the high-level milestones of what's coming up. You can see tonight, community engagement, another one on November 10th to respond to any comments or community feedback or input that we get. And then, of course, the rezoning, October, November. Need some county board approval in December. And then contingent on all that, we will get into the details and have the drawings ready for bid in July, construction starting shortly thereafter. And then building occupancy by the end of 2024. So I think with that, we're gonna open up to any questions, comments, concerns, feedback from the group.
Great question. This is an in and out place, right? People can come and go
Yes.
throughout the day, right?
Yep.
Is there gonna be guild staff there all the time?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's a great question. Our facility is, sure. Our facility is a 24/7 treatment facility and it's staffed at all times. But it's not an involuntary facility, so it's not secure. People come at their own will.
Mhm.
And so they can leave at their own will as well. But usually people are coming and going. And as I talked about, as people start to be further along in their recovery, they may want to work some hours and leave for that. Often our clients will go, do things in the community, and that's why we're really excited about the proximity to some of the retail and other amenities in the neighborhood. Commissioner Hammond Rowland, I think you raised your hand.
Thank you. And I'm just curious about if neighbors have come this evening. I can't see that. I can see you. And I'm curious about the engagement and future engagement with the neighbors so that, very much like we have done with Aspen House, there has been an advisory board that was created from the neighbors, and there's a real sense of this is ours, and they feel very proud of it. And I would love to see that happening here at this location as well. So I'll listen.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. That's a great question. And I think, as part of these events tonight, the city provided us with a list of addresses of people in a proximity to this building, and we did send letters out. And so just your question about who's in the room, we have one West St. Paul resident who's also a board member of Guild, but we don't have any other residents in the room today. So I do think it would be important to think about who else might we engage in this conversation. We did, as you might have seen, we did tape this too. I think we're happy to go to any community meetings or present to any groups, homeowners associations, anyone else that's interested. And then, I think our goal is to make this information available to everyone. And really, as you say, I think we're stronger as a service and as a project to have engagement. And we've also been in contact with our colleagues who have been planning for Aspen House. And so we are closely kind of linking with them in terms of what's worked and how we get that engagement and that buy-in. So open to any ideas. And I think we're hoping for more engagement at these sessions, but understand people have a lot going on. So we'll be continuing to look at opportunities to get the word out. I would say too, one other thing, a couple weeks ago, we did present at the West St. Paul City Council, a very similar presentation, and had really good feedback and from that group as well.
We're really,
Well, thank you very much. And I'm just curious if you might be available to speak to like a Rotary Club.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's a great, I am scheduled to be at a Rotary Club, the Egan Daybreak, I think that's what they call it, or the early one, but yeah, absolutely, anytime. We can come to Rotary clubs, neighborhood meetings, anywhere that we're invited and where people would be interested. We were really pleased with the support that we saw from the city of West St. Paul, so really excited about that partnership. Really similar to the overwhelming support we received from the Savage community before we did that project. So that, I think all signs are good, but I agree with you. I think it would be nice to learn from more people.
May I ask another question?
Of course.
Okay. I love your sustainable design. I love the trauma informed. I'm hoping that there will be some use of art as a way of helping to create that trauma-informed design. And so I'm curious about that. And I'm also curious about how residents or those individuals that use this facility, will they have an opportunity to touch nature? Will they get to experience the nature that surrounds them as a way of helping them in their healing process?
Yeah, that's a great question. We're part of the reason we're excited that we landed on this site is the proximity to the just greenery around our staff, and we talked to our the local advisory council, and they were very excited about the proximity to the woods over there. But I also think, you know, part of the treatment with this type of facility is a regular going out for outings or spending time outside or doing different activities. And so that has definitely been incorporated. I love your question about art. I think what we are incorporating an art room and studio within this space for art type therapies. As far as art throughout the space is something that we, as we get closer, what we ended up doing with our Savage facility is that we chose to start fairly, you know, soothing and calming type images that we just purchased, right? But it's actually been filling in with the residents' art and some of the other work that has been happening at the facility, and staff, you know, all those things, the way that staff claim this space, and it's really turned into, I think, an asset and a major component.
So I have another, is it all right if I just?
Yeah,
Okay, all right. I don't want to take up everybody's time, but I'm curious, and one of the things that I know that has been really beneficial to the juvenile services was a garden. And the master gardeners participated in helping us to create a beautiful garden, which will continue and grow and thrive. And for me, what I love about the metaphor of the garden is that they're, you know, individuals that maybe have not been nurtured in their life, or they don't fully understand what that means to them. But when they get a chance to be able to nurture in a garden, nurture the seed, plant it, take care of it, they can understand how nurturing is a way to help you grow and thrive. And so I'm curious about, have you thought about that as a possibility, even a raised bed or something, you know, where people who may be there during the summertime, during the, you know, spring, summer, maybe early fall, could participate in
Yeah.
something like that, a garden.
Yeah, one thing we haven't talked about is in the middle of the C shape of the building, that's going to be a green space for clients that's going to be very visually accessible. So it'll be glass panels looking out. We're going to have a little porch there where there can be plants. At our treatment center in South St. Paul, we do have gardens and some greenery that is taken care of, sometimes by the residents, sometimes by the staff. And also in our Savage facility, we incorporated a pollinator garden into the design in the back. And so we definitely are excited about using that green space and how we can use it exactly. We're dreaming about a labyrinth where people can walk. And, you know, for sort of a meditative, it's something that we learned from our colleagues at Touchstone Mental Health, that they put in just a regular kind of flat stone labyrinth in their healing garden, and it was very popular, and the clients really benefited from that. So we have all these exciting opportunities as we design the property, and we've been really excited with Woolwood's approach because we've been included in every stage of the design process, and feel like we're going to come up with something that is even better than what we have now in our Savage facility.
Well, I just think the efficiency of being co-located on the Northern Services site, the connection to transit and services and community, I just think it's a place that will be recognized in I can see this being a great model for other communities to be able to emulate and learn from. So thank you for all your work.
Thank you for all your support. I think this has been, it feels really good that so many things are coming together and so many partners are, systems, community members. As Julie mentioned, our local advisory council for mental health, which includes a lot of people with lived experience, including experience accessing these services, have all been really positive and supportive of the project, and have also provided a lot of valuable input that's now going into the design process. So I think we're feeling very grateful for the support, and we look forward to continuing to hear this input to inform the process.
Terrific. Is there anything you need is there any questions you have of me?
No, but I really appreciate that question. Again, those ideas for Rotary, or if you or others have those ideas, we'd be happy to start creating a list of, just places that we can be and talk to people and generate the excitement. And I do think, as you say, I think this is a real opportunity to create a community asset that really is where there's really ownership from the community and helping to co-create what we're designing, both from the building and the services perspective.
I would love to see you reaching out to the Chamber of Commerce so that, the business community becomes vested in this, because I think it's an important asset for the business community as well. And I think it will have you never know, you might have businesses that might be interested in supporting you with donations, or, there might be a commitment there that you hadn't thought about.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. You were actually reading my mind. I just thought Dakota County Regional Chamber. We are members of the chamber and very familiar with the members, and I think that they would appreciate the update and being included in the information. And I think we could probably get some good feedback from them. And I agree, an opportunity for support. So thank you. So just
Maureen would definitely, she would be very supportive.
Yeah, she is. Yeah, she is. Ross.
So I actually have a question about, you talked about how this facility is intending to meet sort of multiple points along the continuum you described. So we've talked a lot about the residential piece, but you also talked about kind of the 24/7 accessibility, a place for people to be assessed, to not spend as much time there. So that sort of place to go. And I'm curious, from a design perspective, how you do both well in the same facility, because it seems like people's engagement there would be sort of different and the needs would be different. So you talked about sort of looking at other models. How do you design a building that's intended to do both at the same time?
Yeah, so we spent a lot of time talking about the front door, right? The presence to the public, to the street, to the community. And so really the concept behind our plan today is you've got one front door, and then you have choices to make. And then, residents would get to know the building as they stay, and then, branch out and use the building differently. So it's really that front. And then just flexibility. How do we share spaces efficiently, yet fall within the regulations and the reimbursement guidelines that are there? So that's the balance that we're trending right now as we move from schematic to design development. So it's in process, but those are the kind of conversations that we've been having to move the plan along.
And I think, just to build on what Brian said, I think we're very conscious of all the different elements, from a funding perspective, from a treatment perspective, from a privacy perspective, making sure that people who are in the residential portion of the building have privacy from people who are coming in for that assessment space, even, to the extent that having outdoor spaces that can maintain that privacy for people. So as Brian said, just a lot of conversation about how do we do that in one sort of shared space, but also a space that has a couple different identities too from a service perspective. And I think that place to go is, it's a newer concept for us from a county perspective too. And again, with the great support that we've had from the board and our city partners of just really thinking about collaborative service design. I think we've heard a lot about the need for this type of space, and we've visited places that are doing similar things. So we've gotten some ideas and concepts from those experiences, and really again, listening to people about what's important at that time of crisis to have, both sort of living room type spaces where people can just be, but also private spaces to have assessment, and a place that feels welcoming, that has like a little place where you can get a snack or a cup of coffee, and just trying to take all the things that we've heard that are important, especially when people are in that sort of state of crisis, about what helps people really calm, in terms of furniture and kind of furniture that can lay back if people need to rest, or those kinds of things. So I think we've been learning a lot along the way, but that's definitely a new service building kind of concept for us. So learning a lot from others. So. Anything else? So again, we'll take all of this feedback, think about other audiences that would be interested, and we'll continue to get the word out. And then I think again, as we move through this process too, we want to we'll have more information as we continue to move through the steps. So the website link that you access this meeting by will continue to have sort of running lists of different updates on the project. And then as we move forward to it, we'll have more information to share. So appreciate everyone being here tonight. Thanks again for your support.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.